Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon. And I want to welcome you to Sing Live TV. Of course, that would be Shonda, Inspires Nations to Grow. And for those of you who always turn it on, I refer to you as my singers or my VSPs, vibrational singing people. And for those of you that are new, do me one quick favor. Stop what you're doing. Yeah, stop what you're doing. Subscribe and click the bell so that you can stay connected with me. I hope you guys have had a fantastic week, and I just wanted to tap on in and talk to you briefly. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you guys about in terms of like a Wisdom Wednesday. Of course, today is Thursday, but I still wanted to tap in so I could give you a couple of videos today. And I have been just really in tune with God and just in alignment with Him and in prayer. And, I find myself just thinking about things, thinking about the state of our world today. If you observe the state of our world, it is in direct opposition to the Word of God. It's almost as if individuals or people don't care about ethics and morals, not according to our way of doing things, but according to God's way of doing things. It's like, you do what you want to do and, do as thou wilt. And it's like, no, it's about some type of discipline and some type of order. And so we go about our lives and we get so caught up in the mechanics of every day-to-day living, going to work and coming home and helping our children with our homework, or, just being single or being out in this world, getting caught up in all this fleshly stuff, getting caught up in fame and in fortune and seeking a dream, and your soul is just withering away. And then we find people that are really serious about their walk with God, but they have conflicting things going on the inside of them because there's issues there that have not been addressed. And so you find yourself wondering, like straddling the fence, like lukewarm. You're not hot, you're not cold, but you're in the middle. And of course, if you read your word, God hates that. He would prefer for you to choose a side. But in any event, we get so caught up in the mechanics of our life to where we find ourselves in an identity crisis. An identity crisis. Different things are defining who we are. Whether it is wealth or fame, whether it is vanity, whether it is a relationship, our job titles, being a parent, seeking a goal. It's almost as if we're in an identity crisis. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we like and who do we love. We don't know ourselves. And so we latch on to different things to get an identity. And so we find ourselves in a crisis. And today, as I began to think about an identity crisis and I studied this, he led me over to Luke 22:54 through 62. And when you get a chance, I would love for you guys to read that. But just to paraphrase what went on just a little bit in there, or from what I can remember off the top of my head, it was, Christ told Peter that he would deny him 3 times. And, of course, he was like, no, I would never deny you. And like Peter, we find ourselves in situations to where we're hiding who we are in God. And we find ourselves telling people that we'll never turn our backs on them, but we do. We find ourselves in situations where we abandon people, we misuse people, and we leave permanent scars on the hearts of people. An identity crisis. Not really wanting to admit that we belong to God. We want to mask our identity in our woes and in our strongholds and in our passions. It's almost as if we don't want to be bold for the kingdom and reveal to people who we are, because if we get found out, then we have to walk on the straight and narrow, and we have to live a lifestyle that's accountability associated. And by all means, we don't want to do that, because we want to be able to do what we want to do, fall back, pray, ask God to forgive us, just to repeat the cycle. So we find ourselves in an identity crisis. And if I was to go ahead and define what an identity is, it is the fact of being who and what a person or thing is. Close similarity, your name, your ID, your identification or recognition. Identify. Identity. If we look at a crisis, it's an intense time or difficult or trouble in one's life when an important decision must be made. It's an emergency, a disaster, a crossroads, a turning point. It is a time to where God has some of you in an identity crisis. You're at a crossroad. You have the stamp of God on you and you're living like you don't have any sense at all whatsoever, and generations are coming behind you lost, not believing in who He is, because you, as the person over them, are in the midst of an identity crisis. And because of that, generations are being lost because of your identity crisis. Some of you have forgotten who you are because of what you've gone through. Life has a way of just shifting our circumstances around us to where we're hurt and we forget who we are. We forget ourselves and we forget our abilities and our capabilities, and we forget our uniqueness, the niche that made us who we was, our gifts, our talents. But most importantly, we forget our identities, and then we find ourselves just lost in the valley of the shadows of death, lost in the valleys of the shadow of lust, lost in the valleys of the shadows of popularity, lost in the valley of the shadows of like on social media, lost in the valleys, in the shadows of pornography, alcoholism, vanity, money, success, just lost in the shadows of the valley of these things, to where the enemy has come in and stole your identity. You're lost in this darkness, in your hurts and in your pains and in your cycles that you continue to repeat. Some of you almost 50, 60 years old, just lost in this. And some of us are lost in our victories. Just an identity crisis. Identity crisis. And so I want you to think about that today. I want you to think about your identity and who do you see yourself as? And are you running from who God called you to be? Are you running from letting people know who you are in God? Are you running from living your life in alignment to the way you're supposed to? Are you running from complying to the things that you're supposed to comply to, so that people can look at you and know that you have been with God? You've had an encounter with Jesus Christ, an encounter with Him. It doesn't matter where you run. People can look at you and they can see Christ on you, just like Peter. He didn't want them to know because of fear of his life. Some of you don't want people to know who you are because of fear of your life. You want to turn up and do what you want to do. An identity crisis, where there's people spiritually dying around you. And so I want you to think about this. And I want you to think about what the enemy has used to wrongfully strip away your identity, to wrongfully hold you hostage spiritually, so that you cannot tap into your identity in Him to live the life that has been promised for you. I want you to think about this. It could be your history. I found out that my great-great-great-great-grandmother was an Indian woman. Yes, she was a indigenous Indian woman. So was her father. And so that's a part of my history that was stripped away. And thanks to my daughter, she was able to locate this information. And it explains a lot of stuff, like our hair and some of our features. An identity crisis. It could be your character, your spirit that has been lost. Maybe something the enemy has come in and stole your talent away, and your joy and your peace away. And you know exactly who he uses to do this, but you continue to go like a lamb to the slaughter. Maybe it's your money, your hopes and your dreams. And some of us have given our bodies away, and we've lost our dignity and our zeal. And the enemy has come in through lust and sexual immorality to steal away your identity. And you find yourself broken in an identity crisis. It could be your position and your title. It could be your faith. He's stolen it from you. Your self-esteem, your value, your worth, your possessions that you've lost your identity in. Because ultimately, he wants you to lose your soul in the midst of this identity crisis. But I'm here to remind you of your uniqueness in God, to remind you of your strength and of the power that he has given you and equipped you with, the talent that he's given you to magnify him and his name, the joy and the peace that he has given you that passes all that you could ever imagine or all that you could ever understand. Your hopes and your dreams, don't give up on them in him. The love and kindness that he placed down on the inside of your heart, your courage and your position in the kingdom and your abilities, yes, and your identity. And as your mind wanders for the remaining of the week, I want you to reflect on all the good things about who God created you to be before the incident occurred to rob you of your identity and to leave you in a crisis. I want you to think about who you were before your identity was stripped away. I want you to think about that. And I want you to realize that in Christ you can awaken from those ashes, and he will give you beauty instead. He will give you an escape from the crisis in your life, from the woes and the strongholds in your life, and deliver you into his alignment so you can find your purpose in him and the love of God that will be awakened inside of your soul to remove the blinders off of your eyes so that you can see the place that he has prepared for you at the master's table, like he did the prodigal son, where your visions and your dreams can come true. And I want you to remember something. Arise and know who you are, because not only are you fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God with the identity of a kingdom's kid, but your identity has been identified. Because I love you guys, and I want you to have a great week. Bye.